Hello everyone, today we're doing exercise 5.6. Okay, so this is it right here, and in case you don't know what textbook we're using, this is it right here. Okay, so now let's get back to our problem on hand. So it's on page 215. Let me zoom in a little bit so that everyone can see. Okay, we gotta write a program that displays the following table. So basically it's a conversion from miles to kilometers. It's more or less like what we had on the previous 1, 2, 3 exercises, right? Okay, so let's first see the table that you're talking about. Okay, this is the table right here, right? Okay, let's get back to my IDE. Let's see. Okay, I've already created a class here, and I've declared and initialized my 3 constants. The first one being for kilometers per mile. It tells us how many kilometers are there in a mile. And the second one is the maximum miles, and the third one is the maximum kilometers. Okay, so the last 2 constant refer to these numbers here, this 10 and the 65. Again, we could have went away without actually having these 2 as constants. Even this one here, we could have used a variable, or perhaps not using a variable, a constant, right? We could have just used it as a value somewhere in our program. Anyways, I want to get to the core of this program. Okay, so what I decided to do is to declare and initialize my 4 variables again. So this one here will store numbers from 1 through 10, right, for our miles value, and this one here will store numbers from 20 to 65, right? Okay, and the 2 kilometers variable will store the corresponding kilometers for a given number of miles. Same thing applies for the 2 miles variable. It will store the corresponding number of miles for the given kilometers. Okay, so here's what I'll do. The very first thing will be to system.out.print will be to display our first line by simply going miles \t kilometers \t, that pipe thing \t miles, oh gosh, it's kilometers \t, and then miles. Okay, with that out of the way, this is one way of doing it, folks. It's not the only way, so please, we're in the core of this tutorial now. So what I'll do is to use a do while loop. Why? I've gotta at least initialize this. I've gotta at least assign values to this variable. I've gotta do that at least once. Okay, so that's why I'll be using a do while loop. Okay, so I'll keep continuing while my from miles variable is less than or equals to maximum what miles, and my from kilometers variable is less than maximum kilometers variable. Let's go to the next line for visibility. Okay, what is it that I want to do? I want to compute my 2 kilometers variable, and I'll simply accomplish that by going from miles multiplied by my kilometers, that constant up there. That is how I'm gonna get these values here. The values on my second column of the table. Okay, so 2 miles, in order to find the values from kilometers, not meters, divided by that right there. Okay, I'm doing this in order to compute my line 20 is responsible for computing my values for the last column of this table. Okay, once I do that, I will have to go system. I want to use printf system.out.print f. Okay, let's first talk about the last part. I wanna first display the from miles then to kilometers variable. I want to display the from miles. Now go to kilometers, and then after that I want to display the from kilometers to miles variable. Okay, in fact, let me take that to the next line and deal with this up here. Okay, the very first thing I want is to display the from miles variable, and it's nothing else but a digit, so it's gonna be %d, and I wanna leave a space, I wanna leave a tab, and then go and put the corresponding value for my, let's just go to 0.2f. We've been working with printf. I'm hoping people are clear what's going on here. We've been working with printf for quite some time. So here's what I'll do. I'll put 2 tabs for alignment purposes. You can play around with this however you like, and that's the best way of learning. Do things your way in order to find the reason why they have to be done in a particular way. Okay, and then \t. Now I wanna put a digit for my from kilometers variable, and then leave 2 tabs, and then put %2.2f. Then lastly, I want to go to the next line. Hoping everyone is clear what's going on here. Now finally we've got to update our from kilometers variable. We simply increment it by 5, and then lastly our from miles variable, we increment it by 1. Okay, now let's hit the run button and see what we get. Oops. Problem is I used 2 numbers after a decimal point instead of 3. Now let's see. Seems like we're getting exactly what we expected. This is exactly like this table over here. Okay. I don't know, maybe one can make an argument that the space between this sign and kilometers is less than this one here, and less than with this one here too. I don't know. You can, as I just said, you can play around with your printf method however you like till you get exactly what you want. Okay, that was one way of doing it. A second way will be to simply, let's rewrite this loop here. This is the statement I will simply rewrite. A second way will be to simply go I'll simply write it here at the top. Let's use a for loop this time. So here's a del. If I decide to use a for loop, I'll simply go. I can simply do this. I'm just playing around with this, you folks. I just want you to know that you can do things in different ways here. Okay, so basically in the part where you initialize, I'm initializing two variables, the from miles and the kill and the 2 miles variable, and where I do the checking, I'll simply cut and paste all of that. Remember, we're getting rid of our do while loop now, so you don't need to worry much about these errors. Okay, right, and then lastly I'll do my updates, these two updates up there. Okay, these two updates, of course there are only one of those. I no longer need semicolons, okay, so here's my loop. I know it might seem a bit different than what you probably used to, but now I'll simply do this, cut and paste. Now we no longer have this do while loop. Okay, so what is it we want to do? Is to hit the run button. Okay, it seems like we're getting exactly what we expected. So my point is, you can use a for loop or do while loop and the while loop too, but I'm not gonna do an example for the while loop. But there's something that most people are probably not familiar with on this for loop here. You see, this first portion, it's actually declaring and initializing two variables instead of one. I know most of people are used to only having one variable here, which is I in most cases, but this time around we're declaring and initializing two variables there. Likewise, on the second portion of our for loop, instead of checking only one condition, most of people are used to checking whether that I variable they declared is over here is less than some number, say 10, right? But this time around we're checking two conditions. The first one, we check if our from miles variable is less than our maximum miles variable. Then lastly, we're checking if our from kilometers is less than our maximum kilometers variable. Same thing applies on this last part here. Instead of updating one variable, in the case of like if we were using I, we would have to go I plus plus. That is what people are used to. We simply increment I plus 1. We simply increment I plus 1. In this case, since we have two variables we want to update, we simply do what? We simply update all of them. They are separated by a comma. Just so you know, you can have any finite number of variables to declare and initialize at that point right there, and right here too you can have any finite number of variables to update. Again, on this middle portion here, you can have any finite number of conditions you wanna check. Okay, that should be it, you guys. This one will work too. This one will work too. It's just that, like, on each iteration you'll be creating a space in memory because you're declaring and initializing. This solution is inefficient if you ask me, but it works. As I just said, folks, I'm not gonna go through the while loop example. I was just showing you guys how things work. Okay, that should be it for this tutorial, you guys. Cheers, I'm gone.